Well, hello, everyone. You're listening to Truth Cat Radio at truthcatradio.com. And this is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. Today, we were planning to have...
Wait, before you get too into your spiel here, I just want to say real quick to the listeners that I'm going to go... I'm going to be hanging out with Richard today, but I'm going to go cut some onions right now real quick. So I'll be right back, Richard, okay?
Okay.
It's all yours for a few minutes, man.
No problem.
Good.
All right. So, hello, everyone. Like I was saying, I was planning on having a gentleman who's an assistant and volunteer with the Water Protection Association up at Lake Massawippi. Did I say that right? Lake Massawippi. And that's in Quebec. It's near Montreal or near Montreal, Quebec. And this has been an important issue for various locations in America and in Canada and elsewhere. The issue of water protection. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what the issue was, but thus far we've had trouble reconnecting with the guest for today. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to have him on. There's a gentleman we had spoken to for a number of weeks now leading up to this, and I had spoken throughout the week here. But yeah, I don't know what sort of issue came up as of today. But we haven't established contact, so I do apologize and appreciate to everyone who has tuned in. We are going to still continue on with a program for today. And I mean, this is really one issue I would still like to bring up during the show. It's a very important issue. It also touches upon the many other issues in the process. Water protection, this has been a phenomenon. Basically, a debate has been forming more and more. It has, in the past, just been one of the few things that we could take for granted, at least. I mean, times where civilization was not as developed, if we can still safely call ourselves that. And we had a lot of oppressions in ways that, well, we think, at least we are told to believe, some of which have been removed as time goes on. But water was one thing we could all count on. In the past, at least, fresh drinking water in most parts of the world was not up for debate as to whether you could just take what you need as long as you could find and manage access to it, be it from various reservoirs, springs, lakes, even collecting rainwater or what comes down streams from the mountaintops that become ice covered. But this is an issue that's really been developing more and more with the rise of the multinational corporations. Is a good way to sum it up. Basically, I mean, we've always been under oppression throughout the ages by various kings, emperors. But water was never that much of an issue, and we've learned so much through our sciences about water, about how water is so much of what our very body is made up of, and is so much of how we identify life itself, at least in most forms that we have established on this planet. There are some exceptions we're finding elsewhere gradually, but for the most part, our type of life requires, if nothing else, water. And to have just the right to live, perhaps, be questioned through your right to fresh drinking water is what is at stake here. These multinational corporations are gradually, over time, becoming more powerful than the state. We're seeing this again and again when they push for things like the TTIP, the Trans-Pacific Trade Treaty, for one example, where the corporations show that they have more pull in the governmental bodies than most other parts of these individual governments have on their own. It's the interest that is all pervasive now is to profit in every way you can off everything related to sustaining life. And water has been under attack more and more. And as I've put in the promotion for today's program on water protection, the debate over whether access to clean drinking water should be a right or a privilege has been accelerating in this current era. And corporations and governments are seeing themselves more and more like gods whom we are to serve and worship. Well, I know governments have been doing that for a while, in the tradition started by kings and monarchs and emperors of past, although we're given the impression that things are much more diplomatic, much more democratic. It's really only a facade most of the time, but now, yeah, we do see the corporations as becoming the forefront more and more in profiting and exploiting all it can claim ownership over or authority over. We've had these recent situations in California, for example. There's been a lot of drought going on there. I know some of that has been attributed to geoengineering, a topic some people don't like to get into, but from those who have studied it, it is a reality. But there was a combination of different factors related to the water crises in California lately. I mean, we had at least the amount of rainfall getting affected, and as I said, geoengineering may have played a role in that. Many are confident that it had, but the fracking had actually poisoned at least one major aquifer of California. There was, for people who don't know, I mean, fracking is using high pressure and liquids to access oil. This is for deep under the ground. And
Richard.
Yes, Stephen.
I jumped in on you here.
Oh,
All right. I'd take a break from sautéing onions and stuff to add a few 2 cents, and then I've got to leave you back to continue where you are, because I don't want to distract you. But
okay.
But I just want to throw a few things. First of all, California, it's been raining pretty good. Okay, so all that damn drought stuff, it's like, okay, that's pretty much over. Obviously, the management and everything, there's a lot of issues, but there's a couple of things I just want to throw in there regarding the entire water issue. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Fukushima should be the number one issue. There should be, no talk about anything as regarding water other than Fukushima. And then, of course, the chemtrails. When you get it, you can't talk about water without talking about chemtrails, because it directly affects standing water and freshwater supplies. And then, of course, the pipeline issue, that the Indians are protesting about, and I'm assuming this is what this water protector guy was going to probably be talking about. Mm-hmm. The thing about that pipeline is that, first of all, there's hundreds of pipelines just like it going all across the United States right now. And what I found out today was that this particular pipeline that's owned by this company, DA Dapple, whatever you call them, they have another pipeline just like it that's already there. And this is almost like more like a replacement. But they've already owned a pipeline that's going underneath this river that they're worried about the pipeline going underneath. And, obviously, I think this is the idea, is that they think the pipeline is going to break and pollute the river, which is the big deal with the water. Not just the ground, the standing ground, but this river. This has got to be the big deal. But the thing is that if you look at the pipeline that's there already, it's under, it's considerably deeper than the bottom of the bed of the river, if you will, or lake, or whatever they're calling it. But the one that they're building now is way deeper than the one. It's going to be like up to like 180 feet below the bed of the river, in bedrock, basically. They're drilling through for this pipe. So when you think about it, it's like, first of all, there's a pipe already there. And second of all, the one that they're putting in now would appear to be even safer than the one that is there already. And if that means they're going to phase out the one that's there, that might be a good thing. Because nobody's complaining about the one that's already there, just the one that they're trying to build. So you never know. It could be that one's obsolete. And this is not something that we're hearing. We don't understand the processes of digging these tunnels or whatever it is to put these pipes underneath the rivers. It sounds pretty damn scary, but when you look at the one that's there already compared to what they're trying to do with this new one, it sure looks like it's in some pretty heavy-duty rock that's way, way, way. It's like many times deeper than the depth of the river, if you will. By a factor of like 20 or something like that. However deep the river is, this pipe is way deeper than that river. So I don't see how it's going to pollute the river. Even if it did break, I don't see how it's going to pollute the river. The stuff's going to go down, right? Pollute the aquifer maybe, but...
I really couldn't say on that if there's pressures involved that would push it upward, or I wouldn't be able to make the call on that one, but
Well, I don't think so, because it's like the running water. I know that we have, like, for instance, here in Anaheim, the Santa Ana River, when it rains, they put little dams up along the river, and they try to get the water to soak into the ground, and that's how they fill the aquifers. And the aquifers depend on relatively sandy soil, if you know what I mean, something like that. Soil that's going to be susceptible to soaking that up. But if there's like a bedrock or something, a layer, this is the thing. From a geological standpoint, it appeared that there's actually a layer that's pretty darn hard underneath that river down there. Relatively deep. This is what they're actually digging into. So I don't know. That's kind of a geological thing. I think obviously, best case scenarios, we've got single point energy, and we don't need sorry about the microwave. We don't require oil, and I think that me, I say occupy the Getty, and we'll get that stuff, that technology, and it'll all become obsolete and moot. It's like polishing the. Do we worry about changing the direction of the ship, or do we keep bitching about the quality of the drinks in the ship's bar? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, they're get a little crap in the water that we use for making our ice for our cocktails. Never mind that we're all going to die. But anyway, okay. Since my microwave is done, I have to go check my veggies. So
okay.
Ponder on that. I'll be listening. I'll be back.
Okay.
Oh wait, hang on. Before I go here, just got to check one thing. Check the stats. For anybody's listening, we got more listeners. Okay, if anybody wants to call in, of course, I'll be paying attention. But again, help Richard out, 714-598-3125. And Richard's flying solo. sort of.
Well,
Right?
it's fun, into the wild blue yonder and all that.
Quasi solo flight. Yeah.
Well,
All
I mean,
right.
I think my opinions should get to be shared a little more too on occasion, and I like talking with you when you
There
have.
you go. All right. Okay. Well, I won't. I'm gonna try
yeah.
not to worry about you. And I'll turn my back on you for a while. Okay. There you
Okay.
go. Later.
All right. Well, no, I appreciate what Stephen just shared with us, and listeners. To get back to the point I was making earlier with the example in California, well, it was as Stephen pointed out, the drought has passed. It has been getting a lot of rain there now. Stephen, being a resident himself in Southern California, he would know, of course. The point is really the sort of priorities that were and have been taking precedent over the past couple of years when California had experienced these droughts. As I mentioned, the one large aquifer had been contaminated due to fracking. And as I was explaining fracking, I believe, earlier when Stephen interjected. And yes, this is using high pressures to release oil deep underground. There are liquid waste byproducts from this activity. And yeah, these are very toxic, these liquids. And, the original thinking was, they're deep under the ground. We don't have to worry about it. And then they had more and more incidents like these. And this incident, yes, it contaminated a major aquifer in California, which added to one of the major drought situations that had been experiencing over the last couple of years, not at this moment, but in recent past. And one of the other large aquifers, which could have done more to save the day for many of the residents of the California regions and counties, was not allotted to the citizens. Rather, the rights were retained for Nestle. The Nestle Corporation, a multinational corporation, which had been bottling it to sell it to you, for outrageous prices. And this is actually under further scrutiny and research. This turned out to be with a license that was expired. Okay, so Nestle had an expired license for this aquifer, and they're being granted by the federal government and the state of California access to purchase it for just pennies on the dollar compared to what it would otherwise be valued at pre-market, pre-exchange. And then, of course, as I said, selling it back to you for insane profits, rather than it going to the people there who had many crops die, had many situations that affected the small communities to a great degree, and the cities as well. There's a chain reaction, a domino effect when something like a drought does happen. And the point being that the citizens are not given the rights to the water, which is within reasonable proximity to their land, their location, and rather these corporations are given priority. The EPA, of course, throughout the years has been a culprit with a false pretense in a similar fashion. I mean, sometimes it's the corporations, sometimes it can be foreign governments. Nonetheless, I mean, these are people who are supposed to be representing us, who instead are stealing our land, our water, if you will, stealing it in a way, whereas they are giving or promising it to these corporations, these foreign governments. I mean, this is complete and utter treason, and it should not be tolerated. Now, we have too many payoffs along the chain of command in all of these systems in the bureaucracy. This is how this is able to spread to such epic proportions. The kind of misdirection and misappropriation of funds, resources, rights. And yes, I think this was an excellent example. This example of how this aquifer was given to Nestle as opposed to the residents. And it's just one of many, many cases, like I said, throughout all parts of North America, not just here in our country, but I mean, the gentleman who was going to be on tonight, being near Lake Massawippi, near Montreal, Quebec, and I've heard stories of various situations over in Europe as well. And yeah, these corporations are given rights, and of course, this is just a small amount of money men at the top who are given something that otherwise would be distributed among thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of local residents who should have first and foremost priority to these resources, to this land, and to this water. I thought it would have been a good guest to have on, both because he had been affiliated with the Water Protection Association of that lake as an assistant and volunteer, and also because of his heritage. I know he does speak Native American language of that region, and has preserved some of his Native American heritage. And I thought it would be interesting, to hear a point of view, of someone who can kind of speak from quite a few different perspectives, if you will, as far as the different levels in which something can be allotted to another, which originally seemed allocated to oneself, to the locals, to the forerunners of the regions and areas, if you will. I mean, migration, of course, always exists throughout the planet, but I mean, once the peoples have been established somewhere for a length of time, well, that's a threat to those who try to lay claim to it later on, And I mean, we see this in so many areas regarding so many issues. In America, we've had a couple of standoffs. I mean, we had the issue at the Bundy Ranch, and then the incident up more in northwest region of the U.S. with a similar land debate and standoff. And I know that one now they're trying to make national monuments as the newest trick to get around the stealing of a lot of this land in recent times. That's the newest approach. I did mention the EPA. I don't know when Stephen gets back if he'd like to comment on his familiarity with this, but I know this was created, this agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, was created in direct response to the economic times that we were having, where the dollar was delinked from gold, and we basically needed something to back up our currencies, since the money junkies wanted to go hog wild with the manipulation and didn't want it tied to any metal of substance. So I mean, we had this EPA created to basically claim to be preserving land for the good of the planet, if you will, when they're really promising it to foreign governments to back up their loans. The slavery of the American people was no longer good enough on its own for a lot of these governments with the amount we continually owe. our national debts. But yeah, no, this is the original purpose of the EPA, and I'm sure most people are completely unaware of this. We don't realize how much we're tricked into giving up the most basic of rights, which include, of course, land and water. Property is a really controversial topic in general, especially when it comes to land ownership. I mean, many people have different points of view on this, but most certainly the needs of the many are something that one needs to keep in mind, but of the locals as well. I mean, this globalism is a way of crippling humanity. When people have local ties, they are more powerful to care for and strengthen themselves as a local community. And I mean, that's why just the ownership of land, the right to water, any sort of nationalism or local bond affiliation, tribalism is what is most under attack in the quest for a one world government, new world order, sort of a corporate unistructure of indentured servitude that many of these so-called globalists strive for. Don't mean to get off topic too much, but as I said, water protection is an issue which can really spiderweb, I find, into many different issues that are brought up along the way, and many of them are many of the most fundamental and timeless, if you will, struggles we've been dealing with throughout all of mankind, and perhaps when we were still becoming the current variation of our species. It's not to say we have not more evolving to do, but it seems that we are, if anything, regressing a bit with the amount of technology. We've only become more easy to exploit, in my mind, as I see how everyone reacts to consumerism and marketing, and how technology is interwoven into that consumerism and marketing. And I don't think evolution has been progressing steadily. Perhaps in earlier times it was a steady progression, but I think if anything, we've relapsed a little bit as a species, and we really need to have the individuals conquer over the tyrants, as far as just a lifestyle. I don't know, societies do therefore need to break down at the tribal and local level to find their strengths to a good amount of sustainability. We need nations, but we do not need the kind of, well, you need cooperation among nations without the kind of conglomeration that can only lead to tyranny. I mean, it has to do with a similar philosophy among having a quality product. If you have, let's say, VCRs or DVD burners would be and more updated, but even those are going out of. Well, I'm showing my age here, aren't I? Okay, let's say you have what doesn't change much: washing machines. There, you have washing machines. If only one company is making washing machines, well, they no longer have a motive to make a good washing machine at a decent price. They can make a horrible washing machine that'll break down. That's completely overpriced if there is no one else out there making washing machines for you. And that goes the same for governments, actually. I mean, the whole push toward globalism is going to only make it that much easier for the standard of living to never improve, to you have no control over those who construct society, because you have no alternatives to go to, and what you do means very little to them. You cannot dictate with your buying power and options out there, who will succeed or fail. You no longer have any input to help secure quality, basically. And so on many levels, the control of anything related to sustainability of life in general is always up for exploitation. And that's, I think, something that we have to constantly be aware of and learn to see in all the forms it can take. And this can vary quite a lot. Let's see, I'm trying to think of the other points Stephen was making, actually, regarding the water protection issue. I know when we were talking about fracking, the situation of Fukushima and just the amount that's gradually contaminating more and more has also been an issue regarding water protection. I mean, what is left that isn't damaged is even more valuable as a percentage becomes contaminated by nuclear fallout, which takes quite a while to recover from. I forget the amount of years for each stage of recovery from a nuclear event for the matter in a particular region, but it is significant, to say the least. Other forms related to corporatism and a clean environment for resources would be, of course, these issues with Monsanto and GMO crops. You have the pollen contaminating for miles around. You have all these farmers, these small-time farmers trying to be organic, who are getting rejected when they try to sell to foreign markets, because it turns out Monsanto, through pollen and the wind, has contaminated their fields without them knowing. I can only imagine for some of these, if they also get slapped with some sort of fine from Monsanto for not paying for rights to those crops when they didn't want them in the first place and are already going broke from not selling their crops. It's really ridiculous how things are manipulated. And the corporations these days, as they become more and more powerful, are starting to be worse than any tyrant of a nation that we've ever seen throughout history. And well, since these can be multinational, the corporation seems to just take on an amount of power and influence that goes beyond really what a leader of any single nation is capable of. That's probably the greatest danger, is just the conglomeration of power, wealth, and influence. We have just a small amount of people behind the scenes with all of the money and influence the faces we see of them will be these multinational corporations. Some people will never know their names. We'll never know quite who's tied to which commodities, to which extent, to which percentages. We'll never know anything about their existence because they want to hide when they have that much wealth. They don't want anyone to know anything about them or where they might find them, of course. But the one thing they can't hide is the corporations they own. Those names, those big names, are the biggest sign of pure evil, I suppose, that you could really identify with on the planet, that self-identifies without hiding its identity. So yeah, I do think that although the nation state is something that needs to be kept in check, to continually be serving the people of it and not the other way around, which can be a continual challenge. I think nonetheless, the corporations are the gravest danger as we move on toward the future, as technology is able to centralize things so much more. There's just more potential for corruption and exploitation. by the few who have all the control and power and wealth at the top. So technology is a double-edged sword, and I think this is part of why we may be regressing on the stairway of evolution at the moment, or ladder of evolution, if you will. I'm glad we're talking about these issues, even though this didn't go exactly as we had planned for the night. I think this is a good topic for everyone to consider more, to do more research into, and to share more on various outlets, such as here at Truth Cat Radio. Speaking of which, the current time here is, let's see, exact time is 8:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's East Coast, yes.
I'm jumping back in here to say hi.
Hey, Stephen.
Just joking on some tea there. Pardon me.
Yeah, I don't know if you were able to catch, while you were doing things, much of what I was saying.
I heard you railing against the corporations.
All right. Well, what did you think? I don't know if you have some comments on the things that I had been saying.
Well, golly gee, I did, but overall, it's kind of hard for me to pick something at the second that I wanted to.
Right.
Well,
you see how, like, the initial place I was going earlier about the Nestle incident, just to illustrate how corporations are so favored, these days. And that was just one example, where the Nestle Corporation in one of the large California aquifers.
Well, I think the real issue here is the corporate structure is one thing, but it also has to do with the capitalist system. And in a situation like this, obviously we're talking about entities that are responsible to their shareholders to provide constant growth. And that's like a cancer. And obviously it's like Disneyland creates a theme park and suddenly they're trying to recreate that theme park model, in a growth thing. You can't do it. You can't recreate Disneyland, but that's what they try to do. It's the same thing with these water guys. They're not happy to sell water to a certain market. They want to sell to the entire market, and then they need to have it make the pie bigger. So yeah, it's a cancerous growth, and it's poisonous, and it could be the end of our model. But again, if you really want to get philosophical about it all, it's the greed thing, and the only thing that corporations really do is they provide a method of financing for creating equity to put together a business, a new venture. But unfortunately, once you start doing that, the value that you're adding to this company is like nothing. It's like Facebook. You could have a company that's worth billions of dollars and actually has no assets. It's all virtual, strictly because somebody feels that there's money to be made there. So it's a bad model, and it definitely needs to be fixed.
Yeah, certainly. You have these corporations, as I was mentioning, that are kind of the only, and many have suggested most of the people with the greatest amounts of wealth and power. I think you yourself mentioned you'll never hear their names. They try to stay so hidden, right? But they are the ones who own most of these multinational corporations. Wouldn't that be logical to assume?
No, actually, it doesn't really matter, because the only real corporation that matters is the one that's outlined in the Magna Carta. And all of these people that own companies and such, they kind of fall under the category of nobles. And technically, everything that they own is 20% of it is pledged to the crown anyway. So if you're, that's where the real power is. And ultimately, all these assets are ultimately owned by a very small group. And these, if you're going to be like a Bill Gates or a Warren Buffett or something like that, you're going to be in the trilateral and the Bilderbergers and what have you. So obviously, a guy like Donald Trump, he's the very fact that he's a misfit and was able to come up with all this money is why he's not part of all that stuff. They never took him in. He never became part of all that.
Well, I mean, the whole war with Russia, hostility toward China, it's fighting for the U.S. dollar, and, that for that to be a continued commodity, since we don't manufacture as much over here in the U.S. like we used to. It's it's a war because of their currencies being a larger threat now than they were in the past.
You gotta go back in time. All right, let's go back to 1913, 1910. Was there a threat from anybody?
Well, I mean,
was China anything back then? Was anybody? Seriously.
You're challenging all my global history.
Yeah, if you go back to the days before the Khazar Mafia started taking over our country and started destroying our currency with the Federal Reserve, if you go back to before that, then we were the dominant force. Nobody could compare. So in other words, all of this destruction and impoverishment of our economy and our manufacturing base is strictly due to a very long plan to destroy the world and primarily every tribe that is not of the Chosenites.
Well, you mentioned the Khazar Empire, and it seemed like at the turn of the 20th century, the focus was more on decimating Germany, with World War I and what happened after that.
Decimating Russia before that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
then Germany. That was the plan. Now us.
Right, yes. And so I mean, the Khazarian Empire definitely has played a strong hand. A lot of people, though, we see how much now Israel is a big factor with all these wars. A lot of people have suggested that Rothschild themselves, the Rothschild family, owns so much of Israel that it's virtually considered theirs. I mean, would you agree with that statement?
Silly. Of course, it's owned by Israel. I mean, by the Rothschilds. No, it's owned by the Palestinians. But
well, no, I know who deserves it rightfully, of course.
There's no ownership. I mean, I don't know where this ownership thing came from. They built most of the government infrastructure, if you want to say that, and they certainly have a lot of money invested in the country. Obviously, the Rothschilds. If you want to call it ownership, that's like if you were to take a bunch of blood money and use it to pay for some kidnapping victim that's going to become your slave. Do you truly own that slave?
Right. So, no. Just the amount of influence and control you have over something.
Rothschilds are working for the crown. A lot of people think that. A lot of people are confused. They think that the Vatican runs everything, and the Rothschilds are very big, but they do technically work for the crown, and the best way that the Rothschilds have for gaining control of everything is to economically take over the business of the crown and to marry into it and get people bloodlines, like I think they've done with Prince Charles and those guys.
Well, I know they're still very concerned with perpetuating the myth in the Old Testament of their their ancient land there, and they want to talk up this history of the Jews' ownership to those regions, while they want to destroy all of the evidence. I know especially places like Iran, that's such a big target of them. These places you can't take 5 steps without coming across some artifacts, from ancient times. There's evidence everywhere of these civilizations that predate Judaism and have nothing to do with them. And the Khazars don't like that, right? The Zionists, they would rather hide the true history of people such as the Palestinians' right to these lands.
Well, I don't really want to talk about Khazars. The Palestinians aren't even really. There's really no such thing as Palestinians, but there was before Israelites was Armenians. The Armenians really ran that area and they weren't called Armenians back then. They were called something else. But
well, people like Hytham, I mean, what are his ancestors originally called back then?
Phoenicians.
Okay, Venetians is what we know today as Palestinian.
Actually, not necessarily. A lot of people came and went and were conquered. But so as far as indigenous types, you have to think about that for a second. You see, because this also incorporates Jordan and Syria, and remember the area along Israel, especially the West Bank, where Hytham lives, is pretty damn small compared to the surrounding countries. Jordan's small too, but Syria's it's bigger than Israel. And if how far back do you want to go? The so-called when the Exodus, if you go back to Exodus in the Bible, and whatever time that was, the people that were there in Israel were Armenians. The Amalekites that were doing battle with the Israelites to keep them from stealing that property were actually ancient Armenians. But
so when they say Sephardic, that would be included.
Has nothing to do with that.
No. Okay, that's a bit different.
Yeah, that's some other kind of crap. That's like
okay.
There's something else I'm going to say, but I'm going to say this first: is that the people that came and went in that area, for the Babylonians took it over at one time. Persians took it over one time. Assyrians took it over one time. Many cultures have conquered that area. Phoenicians, Canaanites, whatever you want to call them. Hittites, Egyptians, it was probably closer to being part of Egypt there for a long time. But at the same time, it was a backwater. You look at that area and you think it's something special, but no, it's not. It was a backwater because the Nile was where it was at. And, it's like you look at where the big cities are, Istanbul, Constantinople, Cairo, what is there over there? Jerusalem? What the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? What is there? There's wrecks of things that were torn down. That's all there is there, and it's not even nice. It's like you go to Aleppo. Look at what the citadel, the center of Aleppo. In spite of all the crap that went on, that thing's in pretty good shape. That's like the oldest continuously, occupied city that's still in existence. And what is there in Israel? Nothing. It's crap. And I'll tell you something else, and this is, I don't want to slam Arabs, and Muslims, because first of all, Muslim is a religion. It's a belief system, right? And Arabs, what is an Arab? An Arab is not a race. It's not even a tribe. All it is a brother. It's this, whatever you want to say Abraham was and his slave, all the Arabs came from that. That's not exactly a race of people. You can't say, Arabic people is a race of people. No, it's not. That's not a race.
So it's like referring to Mediterranean or North American or something. It's just a vague.
Not even. It's a family. Mm-hmm. It's a clan. Is all it is. It's a clan. It's a family. It's a family name. It's all it is. They're all sons of. Because Abraham was a slut and he had children from a wife and children from a slave of his wife. The Arabs, all they are is the children of the slave of his wife, and the Jews are the children of his wife. That's it. And what the hell is Abraham? So in other words, Abraham does not a race make. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, if you're going to tell me that all the Jews came from Abraham and all the Arabs came from Abraham, it's like, what the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
What was there before Abraham?
Yeah, well, the people who have been living the whole time in the Middle East are supposed to have the strongest bloodlines to the people.
Okay, I live in California. Does that make me a race of Californians?
Well, no, I just
I
mean,
come from the tribe of California. God promised me this golden land of California.
well,
You know.
no. I mean, the people such as, Netanyahu, as far as the bloodlines, I mean, like that would be coming from the Khazars,
Yeah.
who at
Well,
a long time ago had some blood from that
it
region.
came from Russia, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
These people were scattered all over the place. You got to understand that area, that whole entire area, which is, that Georgia, Khazar, what is it? That whole where Borat land is basically was nothing but backwards hunter-gatherer nomads. And this is the basis of the Khazars. And the only connection that they even have, any close connection that they have to King David and King Solomon, is the fact that the ones in the north of Israel, the so-called true Israelites that were conquered by the Assyrians, eventually became somewhat savage and uncivilized, and they basically mixed in with the savage, uncivilized people that they are known as the Khazars now. So the Jews that went to Babylon and then returned and rebuilt the temple, they maintained a semblance of their Jewishness, but at the same time, they also absorbed all of the satanic crap from Babylon. They're not even connected to the Khazars. The Khazars are connected only to the ones that were conquered by Assyria. They're like the hillbilly black sheep of the tribe of Judah, if you will, of the Israelites.
The ones that spent so much time in eastern Russia, basically.
They weren't. It wasn't Russia when they were there. It was Khazaria.
Right. Yeah, what is known today as.
Yeah, but those people. I mean, okay. First of all, you got to remember, Israel split in two during King Solomon. All right. Nobody wants to admit it. That's the big lie number one, is that Israel split in two, and nobody wants to admit it. The northern half was conquered by Assyria. The southern half was conquered by Babylon. The northern half, supposedly, and very few people will agree with you, they'll argue with you on this, they became the Khazars after they were freed from Syria by the Persians. Instead of going back to Israel, they went north and they became the Khazars. And they mixed it up with whatever was there already. And that was the Khazars. And the Khazars were, after whatever, 500, 800 years, were completely wiped out by the Vikings. And that was what started Russia. So Russia is a Viking country that was based on the defeat of the Khazars. See, it was all wild country. That's why it's so damn big, because once they took out the Khazars, they said, damn, how far does this country go? And they went until they hit Japan, basically. But yeah, but the thing is, they didn't completely wipe out the Khazars. A bunch of them were still living in that area, what was to become Russia. And eventually they were allowed to go to school, and they were allowed to own businesses, and they were allowed to become full-fledged citizens and able to hold office and things like that. And what do you think happened after that? Russian Revolution, Stalin, Trotsky, all that crap, Khazar crap.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you had the communism because of the Khazars.
Yeah, they created all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, now they're trying to destroy our country. But I'll tell you, the big issue, of course, right now is that look at what's in this country. And I really want to get off your show here and give it back to you. But
well, no, but I mean, and that's why Russia is a threat.
I'm going to talk about Hollywood right now. Khazars are running Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is why you got these people freaking out right now. These, the bottom line is it's all satanic. That's, I don't care what it is. It's not a bunch of, dirty Khazars. Yes, it's a bunch of dirty Khazars mostly, but it's also Satan running around. And they worship Satan, and that's the problem here, is that they've got some hardcore Satan worship going on. That's the problem. And obviously in Hollywood, that's a big deal. This is why you got people trying to, I mean, they've got, 11 days before Trump takes office, and they're freaking out. These bastards are actually starting to get disappointed because they're expecting, first they couldn't believe that Hillary was going to lose, and now they can't believe that somebody hasn't assassinated Trump yet. They're actually freaking out that he might actually become president. This is like their biggest nightmare, and it should be, because they're going to all go down. All those FEMA camps, we could fill them up with child molesters and subversive. It'd be like McCarthy all over, or 1939. People go, yeah, it's going to be Hitler all over. Well, if it means rounding up all these scum that have been, terrorizing, promoting Satanism and bestiality and pedophilia, then I say no problem. Round them up. Crack some eggs. All right. Don't talk to me now. I'm gonna mute. Here I go. Wait a minute. Let me see what time it is. Oh my God! Look at that. 5:59. Oh, it's a commercial break. Commercial break.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Hi everybody. Oh, you got some listeners. Hi guys. This is Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary, and I am of course sitting here just giving him a little commercial break. But I want to remind everybody: send us money. Haha. No, kidding. Sorry. No, it is the beginning of the month. We do need to constantly do that. And so anyway, yes, please, economic support is very much appreciated. And there's instructions on the homepage, www.truthcatradio.com, tell you how to help us out. It's just PayPal. Also, please share all our stuff on YouTube. Or not YouTube. Well, yes, YouTube. You see our YouTubes that come out, share it. Also, all the stuff we put on Facebook, share it, like it, share it. Join all the groups. If you have not done that yet, please do it. And if you find yourself developing any interesting psychic skills, you could go ahead and let us know about that too. We definitely want to hear about it. If you want to become part of Truth Cat Radio, let me know. We're happy to have you part. Give you a nice fun job, like Richard here. You can be Richard's sidekick. Anyway, so yes, no, seriously, we are looking for talent and people that want to donate their time and skills to the effort. And let's see what's going on. Oh, yes. Now, coming up after Richard here in roughly an hour is Dave Robbins with his show, Mystic Freedom. And much like Richard, he is going to have me talk to him, hang out with him, probably, no guest. Must be an after the holidays thing. But that's okay. But I just be advised that I am making a meatloaf. It'll be done about 6:30, or about 30 minutes from now. So, I might not be so anxious to be talking during that period of time. Anyway, did I? Oh yeah. But by the way, I do want to, again, all those of you listening, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and supporting Truth Cat Radio. And we look forward to being here for a long time. So, Richard, are you ready to get back to work?
Yeah. I mean, are there any updates with the weekly schedule to mention?
You mean like you moving to a different show time, something like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, well, no. Other than that.
Yeah, but I'm lazy, man. Come on, Jeez. I got a meatloaf I'm cooking. All right, let me look.
I don't know. I saw there were a couple minutes.
All right. Well, Ahmed. I don't know what he's got planned for tomorrow, but he's got some. I'm sure he'll have something going on. And again, Daryl. I haven't heard anything from Daryl yet, but he may have had an ad right there that's up that I haven't looked at. But Ahmed, of course, is at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Daryl comes up at 8 p.m. Eastern. Followed by Madison Star Moon, and of course Amanda was sickly last week. She said she was death warmed over, so we gave her a break. It gave me a chance to play hooky. Really, it comes on at Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Lady of Light, and she hasn't told me what's going on, but I'm gonna suggest that meatloaf is gonna be good, Dave, and baked potatoes in the oven gonna be just right. Yep. And I tell you how I make my meatloaf. I saute the veggies. I use onion and bell pepper and garlic, but I don't just toss it in the meat and cook it. I saute it with a little olive oil and stuff first, get it nice and yummy. Then I mix it up. Okay. Oh yeah, what comes else? I don't have anything else scheduled, really.
Oh, InfoFront? Did you mention InfoFront?
I don't think Trevor's doing his show. I think he flaked out.
Oh, okay.
You got to have a certain amount of dedication to do this job, huh? Huh, Richard?
Yeah. Well, it can vary over time. You have to experience it to really know.
Yep. But but after that, I should say that Terry Joyce is going to be on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be talking about the Hollywood aspect of what's going on right now, the nonsense. Oh my God, like Rosie O'Donnell saying, "Oh, Hollywood's going to have a strike." Really? You're going to shut down TV and movies? Oh gosh, darn, that's just awful. That was really going to bring the country to a halt.
Yeah, the arrogance with the amount of low quality out there as well.
I mean, that's like CNN getting upset because Trump doesn't want to share his Twitters when his Twitter followers outnumber all the networks combined. It's like, what does he need CNN for?
Yeah,
that's like newscasters, primetime news reading Facebook to people who aren't smart enough to just look at Facebook themselves.
Well, yeah, they're in shock that he doesn't need them. He's just twittering directly with the people.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, Graham Sutherland. I don't know what's going on with Graham's microphone. I sure hope he's got that fixed up, but he's on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And my show is on at 10 p.m. Eastern. I haven't made any plans for my show because, everything's like I was saying about Aurelia. Everything's been kind of Getty oriented. We're in a big battle with all that right now. But we'll come up with something interesting, I'm sure. But that's what's going on. Okay, I gotta go check on wait a minute, how long has it been? 6 o'clock? It's only been 30 minutes. It's way too early to check on my meatloaf, but I got a nice big loaf of bread to go with it, French bread, and what else?
You still have that? Is that program? Is that other program still following you on Thursday night?
You're talking about, after Graham was Michael Stroop. Michael bailed. I think he bailed because he wanted to be able to slam Donald Trump, and I didn't kind of any slack with that. He's like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of harsh about that. If you want to come on here and say that, oh, we're all fucked because Donald Trump is a racist and works for the CIA and he's a Jesuit, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Seriously, I'm not going to put up with that. You know how I am. I've hung up on your guests before, kicked him off the network here right in the middle of the show. Like, what are you talking about? Get the fuck out of here.
Well, no, yeah. Well, if some things are ultimately connected to things you don't want to be associated with, it strikes a strong chord.
We try to filter as much as we can, and a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're censoring," but no, we're not censoring. We're controlling. It's just the way it is. We're controlling our dialogue. The most important thing we can do in this business that we're in is control the dialogue, and that means that we don't waste our time talking about crap that somebody thinks we need to talk about. We talk about things that we think need to be talked about.
I agree, Stephen, and just for the record, while you're on the subject and everyone's listening, I do support you on calls like that you've made.
However, what?
No. Even though some people I know, may have had disagreements with me, not agreed on backing you up. I think that not everyone understands. Perhaps.
I think I hear what you're saying. All right, listen, this is the thing. Everybody has the right to determine how they deal with these sort of things, and I have a very bad reputation for being rude or whatever. Asshole, I think, is what they use, the word they use. But at the same time, and I don't fault anybody for this at all, but I mean, I've been through some shit. You know what I mean? And when I say that, I mean it's like I have no patience whatsoever, because it's like the crap I've had to deal with and the level of crap I've had to deal with this on. It's like unless there's no one else in the fucking world that has done this, and I've yet to meet that person if they have. So it's like you can't even, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you only have so much energy to waste, or none really to waste on something. Yeah,
nowadays we have none. We have no energy to waste anymore on this. We can't. We just can't. Especially if somebody, like the other night when let me see what was on doing my show, and the guy calls in, and we're talking about the Getty and rescuing children, and he starts bad-mouthing Trump and saying how Trump controls the CIA and they're zapping his implant. And I'm like, what? You didn't hear that? Oh my God. Oh God. And I go, well, first of all, do you or do you not want to save the children? And he goes, well, that depends. And I'm like, what? That depends. What do you depends on what? What could it possibly depend on?
Yeah.
Like, well, that depends on if Trump's president or Hillary's president. It's like, excuse me? What? It's like, oh yeah, if Trump's president, screw that, I'm gonna let them all die. I'm sorry, but what the fuck are you? It's like, okay, I'm gonna hang up on you now. Click, and then he's trying to call back.
It's amazing how much Hollywood is backing, the liberal Hillaryites. People like we've mentioned, like you were mentioning.
They're going to die. They're going to die. See, it's like guys like George Soros. It's like, what is keeping George Soros from being in jail right now? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not much. It's like he should be, for what he's done, the crimes against humanity. Seriously.
He's been involved in so many things in so many different countries. It's just mind-blowing.
Russia has a warrant out for him. He's wanted dead or alive in Russia. It's like, no wonder they're trying to start World War III with Russia.
All of the Zionists really see Russia as being very battle-weary, if you will, because they've gone through so much with the Khazars. That the Zionists stem from, I think, that they see like post-Soviet Union Russia and Putin as a major threat because they see through all of the, they see through all the lies and deception.
I was going to tell you, I was going to type something out, but I'm just going to say, Dave's talking about the meatloaf. I said, Dave, you should see the tri-tip or the big old roast that I'm marinating. I'm going to marinate it for like 2 days, I think. You like that idea?
Well, no, but the Zionists hate Russia because of the money.
Well, the Zionists hate Russia because they want to get back at Russia for destroying Khazaria. They want to get their Khazaria back.
Well, Russia is willing to fight them, both like with their currencies and then the whole GMO and Monsanto thing. That's completely Zionist control.
Russia's a Christian country.
Russia's against that strongly.
Russia's anti-Satan. That's a big part of it. Ooh, only a few more minutes before I get to. I better go check on my meatloaf. No, I mean it's like.
But no, Putin is against all of the things, resisting all of the Zionist corporate influences.
Yeah, but we don't say corporate. But
okay.
Okay. First of all, this is the thing. All right, when the Khazars were assimilated into Russian culture, they didn't just kill off all the Khazars. All right, there's a lot of them. And what we call today Russian Jews are pretty much these Khazars. And you got to understand that in a country that is a atheist country, remember during the times of the Soviet Union, Russia was an atheist country. So the so-called Khazars or Soviet Jews were like still, for the most part, atheist. Okay, so in other words, they didn't have to be. They could be whatever they wanted to be, and when they became assimilated into the governments and all that, it's like you can't really tell a difference. Now, if you look at the Khazars, what they are, there was a lot of, and this also applies to countries like Turkey and what have you. But it's like where did they come from? Besides the Jewish influence, I don't want to say Jewish per se, but Israelite influence, there was also heavy Mongolian influence. All right. And some Armenian, and some of those areas. Okay, so when you look at Russians, you can see a lot of the Mongolian influence, and that's not just from Mongolians, that's also from the Khazars, all right? So, but the point I'm trying to make is that they're very integrated into the society. They've been so for a long time, and as such, they still have a lot of influence in society, even though Vladimir Putin has a 80-something% approval rating, very, very high and all that. If you look at, for instance, RT, Russia Today, that even though it's it's serving as a state organ for Russia. At the same time, there's a very strong influence, Khazar influence in there, just because that's the nature of them.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I remember the one caller to one of our shows one time pointing out what's the Kaiser report?
Sorry,
Max Kaiser on the Kaiser report.
Yeah,
and
he's got a little Zionist thing going on, huh?
Yeah, and
who's the other guy that's got 2 shows on RT right now?
A bit in their pockets.
Where's the suspenders? I think, what's his name?
Oh, I don't know his name.
Yeah. Oh, come on. He's Jewish guy, wears suspenders, glasses. He's a very famous interviewer.
I don't remember all the names. I remember some of the show titles. Like there's a crosstalk.
You're making me work now. I gotta
going underground. I don't know. We're not trying to advertise for RT. I mean, at the same time, it's amazing how they're being demonized. Larry King.
That ring a bell?
Oh well, yeah. Okay, I didn't.
Larry King has 2 shows on RT.
Okay. I didn't know that. No, that he's with them.
Yep.
But no, it's amazing how much they're demonizing RT and Russia. I mean, because it's like Khazarian Zionist influenced media is really the answer behind it, and yeah, I mean, Russia has been standing up to all of these things.
Yeah, Larry. Here we are talking. It's like, thanks, Dave, but there's a time delay. We already figured it out. I'm just saying here, you ought to just drag Dave in here. I'll make Dave work. I'll make Dave extra work. Oh, that's what I should do. I'll make you stay up late, and you and Dave can talk. Of course, I'll be in there too. I'll make him come in and hang out on your show, and you can hang out on his show. How's that sound?
Well, it sounds like we wouldn't get enough of your input.
That's the whole point, man. I gotta go eat my meatloaf. Dude.
Well, you could eat for a few minutes and come back. I mean, but
yeah, no. You don't want me to enjoy my food, do you? You want me to just
gulp it down and get
this
back.
Happened on a show. I made this wonderful dinner, and then I had to do a show. And by the time I was done, my show was all cold and everything. It was like, oh man.
No, but I enjoy your perspectives. I'm sure the listeners do on the topics we've been getting into here. And
we are increasing. We have more listeners. Hi guys. Let me just check chat here real quick. See what's going on in chat.
And then differentiating between the different terms. I mean, like the Zionists is not referring to all Jews. When we talk about the Khazar and Zionist influence, we're not critiquing all Jewish people or referring to all of them. Although a lot of times they can be.
Dave wants to know if you want to hang out during his show.
Sure. I'd love to. Dave, tell him. Yeah, I'd enjoy that.
Need to. He's listening. Come on.
Well, I'd love to, Dave. Sure. Sounds like a good time.
All right.
No, I'm just saying that. No, I mean, through guilt and manipulation and just through association, unknowingly, a lot of the Jewish population can get manipulated to serve some of the agendas and goals of Zionists.
Remember, we're talking about just a family, okay? People that can trace their.
Well, that's why I said unknowingly. I mean, because sometimes people just use the affiliation of a major peoples and religion, to.
Well, that's like, are we responsible for things our family did years and years ago?
Well, no, not responsible, but still, I mean, if those people can still influence things for you, even though they would never approve of your actions if they knew what was really going on, that's my point. That's where it gets, difficult to deal with when you get into just people who are able to manipulate a larger source of groups unknowingly. I mean, it's almost. Well, I mean, you're not blaming those people, but you just, how do you, sever the influence? This is the real question. But I mean, I think that when it gets like that, you get into a lot of the myths and just a lot of the hazy realities that surrounded World War II, really, in a lot of the ways Germany was trying.
I guess you got to read the protocols. You read the protocols. That's a good answer to that.
Well, yeah. But I mean, no, I mean, the issue I'm referring to is
you trying to bait me? I'm trying to go cook.
No, I don't want to get into
Should I
World War
drag
II right now.
Should I drag Dave in here? Look at that. It's almost time for. Dave probably doesn't want me to. But let me
Wait.
look.
Oh, he's saying something here. Let me see.
Oh, is he talking to you? Oh, Dave's ready to come in. I'm gonna drag him in.
No. He says he needs to do a couple of things before his show starts.
Oh, does he now?
Or else otherwise he'd love to.
He can explain that to the audience when I bring him in live right now.
Well, I can handle things if you need to chow down. And you need.
So what's the deal, Dave?
On?
What do you got to get going on? You say you got to do something here? You busy?
Might need to drop out and put out a couple of fires before 8 o'clock.
Oh,
my time.
Wow. Okay.
But
okay. Well,
yeah,
we'll
you
stop
guys are
recording anyway.
You guys are talking about exactly the stuff that I was planning on talking about during my show. So
No way. You're gonna do a better show.
it's really good so far.
All right. Listen, Richard, do you want to just go with the flow, and then Dave, you can do whatever you want and just mute your microphone.
Okay.
And because basically in about 40 minutes, we will take a break. We will stop the recorder. Maybe I might play a song or something, and then you can start. So anytime in between that, you can do like I'm doing and be productive and make Richard get to work. Hey, you know what? It's Daniel Freiberg's birthday. I should mention that, Richard, just in case you should.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for mentioning. But yeah,
shout out Daniel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, happy birthday to Daniel Freiberg, and
right.
Yeah, we do hope to see him, hear him back here. I'm sure our listeners would enjoy him coming on again.
All right, Dave, can you help Richard for just a couple minutes while I go run off?
Absolutely. I apologize. I don't know who Daniel Freiberg is.
Oh, he's a right-wing publisher.
A Swedish publisher. Rather right-wing, and Sweden's been pretty active as far as the new right movement has been concerned, and he's been well, I won't say the forerunner, but at the top of the list for Sweden there, right under people like Richard Spencer, who would probably be at the forefront for their movement.
Okay, gotcha.
But
happy birthday, Daniel.
I don't know what, and as far as just the new right movement, well, that of course would be the equivalent of, not the equivalent to, but I mean that's just of course Europe's response to how the right that had been existing at the current time there was not true to the principles of the right any longer, is what kind of similar to what made the alternative right movement that we're referring to it as here in America form. But I guess that's going off on yet another different tangent. I don't know. I think Stephen maybe has left for his meal. But it's great to have you on, by the way, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, yes, indeed. Everyone, Dave Robbins, who has Mystic Freedom after my show. And we're glad to have him here with us on Beyond the Matrix today. Well, Dave, I don't know. We were talking about quite a few things, a lot regarding Zionism, the Khazars, history of the Middle East, and even migrations. And well, Stephen, went into quite a few different directions with me. But then we were also getting back to a couple other topics here. Well, first, though, I mean, since this is the first time you're on my show, at least, maybe you could share for our listeners a little bit about yourself. Why did you decide? Why did you decide, or how did you get to the point of where you are today, having a show here with us?
Well, let's see. I have a background that involves Russia. I've been a Russia watcher for I guess the majority of my life. I grew up here in Utah, and right out of high school, I found myself in the Utah National Guard as a Russian speaker. In order to supplement my income, so to speak, and gain some life experience, I joined the Army, and I went to Russian school in Monterey, and learned to speak Russian, forward and backward. The military's Russian program is really intense. They teach you the grammar, and it's one of the best language programs in the world. But because I spoke Russian, I ended up as a missionary for the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in Russia in 1991 and 1992. And so I got to Russia right at the end of the Soviet period. So it was an amazing time to be there. But after my 2 years that I spent in Russia, I sort of springboarded after a stint at the World Bank, which is a long
So
story.
you arrived there
As a
in
temp for a couple of
1991.
years.
Dave.
I was in Russia in 91 and 92.
All right, and at that time period, you were how old? What age?
I was 20.
Okay, and so yeah, and experiencing.
I was a young buck, man.
Yeah, and experiencing the nation right after the collapse of the former Soviet Union, and so then you were saying.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Well, I used my Russia experience to get a job in the FBI as a Russian language specialist, and I started my career in 1991 at Washington Field Office, keeping tabs on the Russian diplomats. Learned a lot about the Russian intel services. Did that for about 5 years, and then after 9/11, when everything changed, of course, the world changed. Nothing was the same after 9/11. I switched jobs and became a counterterrorism analyst. But because I had experience in Russian and in that part of the world, my sort of area of expertise for most of my career in the FBI was focused on Central Asia, the Russian-speaking former Soviet republics, the areas where
Right, but
terrorism, spilled over into Afghanistan and Pakistan and those areas, the Caucasus with the Chechens, that sort of thing.
But could you explain to us? No, I mean, you said the whole world changed after 9/11, and you switched careers. But I mean, as far as your role in switching careers, could you explain for us a little better, though? Just your line of thinking on that.
Okay. My job as a Russian language specialist was basically sitting in front of my computer with headphones on, transcribing and summarizing conversations, recorded conversations. That's about all I can say. But you do that for 5 years and you get really burned out. And the career path at that time was really restricted. The native speakers had a lot better potential of getting promoted and things like that. So in order to have some better career prospects, I jumped over onto a different career ladder, so to speak, and changed jobs in order to get promoted, and move up the ladder and make more money. You know how that goes. But yeah, after 9/11, the Bureau's focus totally changed. It went from being a law enforcement organization to a terrorism organization. The shiny object that everybody focused on was counterterrorism. And, George W. Bush opened some threat integration center inside CIA headquarters, and that's where I went to. In 2003, and then it became national. But needless to say, I learned a lot about Russia during that time, and having woken up, so to speak, having figured out that the world doesn't work the way that I thought it did. Having studied, conspiracy theories and gone down the rabbit hole a little bit, it's been really interesting to compare the things that I've learned about Russia and the New World Order and the Illuminati and things like that with what everybody else believes about Russia. And it's really shocking to watch the news and to hear how easily Western media can vilify Russia and Putin.
Yeah,
that's what I want to talk about in my show tonight.
Certainly. Yeah. No, I agree completely. I can relate a lot. So yeah, I'm excited to be part of that, and I look forward to it.
Cool.
It is quite interesting. I mean, we have just so many different motives, really. It seems against, but also so many different motives when you bring up Russia, to create such an animosity toward them across the board. With the people in our government and our media, it's because just quite a few different interests all have reasons to be working against them, and since they all seem to merge and line up together, that's how it's able to be such a strong force. Just speaking with everyday professionals here and there in recent times, my experiences have been, there are a lot of people still, unfortunately, who, they don't really have time to really ever delve into news enough to even get to the point of any independent media. They just still, just get a little bit of a snidbit from the corporate media, once a day or a couple times a week. And they still have, these notions that are spoon fed to them. I can't believe I'm speaking to like professional people I know, like, for example, this one lawyer I was affiliated with in just casual conversation recently. And yeah, everything that the agenda wants you to think about Russia, he thinks about Russia. You know what I mean?
Right.
He has all these like responses about Russia and Putin and Trump that are exactly what all of the corporate media and Zionist influence collectively wants you to have.
Do you know the quote from Mark Twain about people who read the news?
That sounds familiar. I know what you're getting at, but no, could you tell us?
He says, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed.
Excellent.
Mark Twain knew how it worked clear back in the 1800s. Nothing has changed.
Certainly. Yes. Well, it was, of course, a threat at first for printing to become easier for people to do. I know on a wide scale. Just every form of media. There's a backlash after a bit of time, but as progressions happen, there'll be currents where things are moving more toward freedom of speech and then moving more towards censorship in a wax and wane sort of pattern. We had that with movable type, and then we had, the church originally tried to control, things as far as the written word and the knowledge of being able to read and write in general. But just every step along the way, of course, there was a new threat with radio and with television, and now the internet has been the biggest one yet. I think it's safe to say. But then the technology also has more potential for control and conglomeration of power, and exploitation and abuse comes along the way, of course. So yeah, I don't know. There are a few threats out there. Because technology in itself is a threat.
Yep, it is.
And yeah,
it reminds me of a quote from George Carlin.
Okay, go ahead.
George Carlin said, "Governments don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. That is against their interests. They want obedient workers, people who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept it."
Yes, very, very well said.
That's totally what mainstream media does. It keeps people locked into these modes of thinking where they think that they're in conflict with some other group, that's about to destroy them or something, when in reality it's a different group that's operating both of them, that's pitting them against each other in order to distract them from what's really going on, from the actual way that they're being screwed by the system.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, along the way, though, you can't fall into the propaganda that all groups need to dissolve either. Because I was pointing out earlier, this, like the whole idea of the one world government is just allows more exploitation. So just the regional, tribal, brotherhoods and associations are important to help sustain freedoms. So that enters into it as well. But I don't know. So your focus for tonight, then, you brought up Russia, and you brought up the just the types of motives, just for why they've been demonized.
Exactly.
Okay, and then I hope everyone sticks around to see where we go with that. And I'm glad to be on board.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. It'll just be all Russian night on Truth Cat Radio.
Sounds great. Yeah, and it's interesting how we went into so many different areas because we wound up talking about the Middle East for a little while there, and then we wound up speaking of the Khazars, history of their migrations, even and of course Zionism, but originally bringing up water protection as the original intention I had for the show.
Right.
Well, I unfortunately had a guest that wasn't able to make it. It turns out that he wasn't doing too well today. He had some issues that came up and wasn't was pretty ill as well. But
they say that water is going to be more important than oil in Central Asia within the next few decades.
Yeah, I think they can see, definitely. I think they can see these things far in advance, can see where the next battles will be and what they will be about. Far enough in advance to plot accordingly. And sometimes it's even, further against the interests of the people as a whole. Unfortunately, that a lot of times just opens the door for more exploitation.
I'm sure you've shared this on your show before, and I apologize to the listeners who know this, but I would love to hear your background and how you got to where you are and what you know about Russia.
Oh, well, as far as my background and combined with my impression of Russia, well, I'm approximately your age. I grew up at the end of the Cold War, if you will, and the just I noticed a lot of the attitudes that were instilled into my parents' generation from the attitude of post World War II American attitudes toward Russia, toward the Soviet Union, toward communism in general, and just it's like I didn't even have to speak with anyone of my parents' generation on an individual level, just from the culture alone and what's depicted even in films and television and our entertainment. Even you can see it everywhere. It's so pervasive. Just these attitudes we're supposed to have and just accept as truth.
Right.
And everything is drawn in such strong contrast, just like, everything is either completely good or completely bad,
Right.
There's no question over anything or, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, who has all the good motives, looking out for the people, and only the most noble of motives at heart, and who is out to deceive. And well, yeah, the culture just had very, very strongly instilled notions toward nations such as Russia and China, most all of the communist nations. Really, it's like I had a very strong impression of the effect McCarthyism had on my parents' generation.
Interesting.
And so, growing up in the era of the 80s, as like a preteen and early teen, and in that era, I saw the end of the Cold War, and then with the collapse of the Soviet Union, you bring up in 91, it was really just a very gradual just fade from the foreground of global news to a good extent. You just started hearing less and less about Russia, basically. And of course, that was bad for the military-industrial complex. And I guess, but of course, we had plenty of new enemies that were concocted up for that purpose. So that's a whole other.
That's the word, is concocted.
Yeah. But no, nonetheless, regarding Russia, though, I mean, I originally was a little skeptical. I mean, I was always a skeptic. So even when I was young, I was rather skeptical. In my late teens, I had really, though, become aware. It was at really the very end of my teens that I really became aware more, though. I mean, growing up as an artist and musician, I was always influenced by philosophies and attitudes that challenged conventional beliefs and mainstream beliefs and everything. And yeah, I'd say that it was a natural progression, therefore a gradual progression, even when I was very young, to just be a little more questioning than some of my peers, perhaps. And therefore the attitudes toward Russia, I had, attitudes accordingly toward. I was, a bit skeptical toward the amount of propaganda and the amount things seemed to be so cut and dry about, how ill intentioned, perhaps would be the right word.
Yeah.
That their people could be. I mean, we're led to believe that not just the leaders or system, but even the people, to be a certain way. And then, of course, the attitudes toward a lot of the Middle Eastern nations. I grew up giving a similar impression of. I mean, a lot of the entertainment industry, had, very strong cliches of what you're supposed to think of as like the role of like, the Russian in the action film or the Middle Eastern guy in the action film,
Yeah.
very strong stereotypes that were always reinforced in the entertainment industry. But I was skeptical of these to an extent. At the end of my teens, though, I really became more awake when I was introduced to William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse.
Right.
I read that book. I was introduced to it by a friend, and I was really blown away by it. I really, I thought of it as a treasure. And I didn't know for sure, of how widespread it was. This was a secondhand copy he had come across. I remember initially, I had instantly just photocopied certain chapters from the book. Not sure if I'd be able to find my own copy, but wanting to retain as much info as I could, of at least key points of it. And it was so enthralled by it.
That
later,
book's a real mind blower.
Yeah. I mean, I later sat on the information he had revealed in it without getting into other people who had a similar, let's see, I don't know, revelatory information.
Yeah.
I didn't really go into, a phase of looking for others with similar information to share. But I sat on his information, and I thought that it had to be more an anomaly, because most people out there, I was convinced, are just trying to make a fast buck and don't have any evidence of anything or information that is of any true serious conspiracies worth looking into. But this guy seems really on the level, and I thought that you really had to read it all the way through with and have an open mind and read it in its entirety to really get a grasp of who he was. But yeah, I was very convinced that it was authentic and sincere, and yeah, that meant a lot to me. To this day, things haven't changed much. And
Yeah.
as far as when you look at most people's perceptions in the current era out there, really,
We're still trying to spread those same messages, those same revelations that Bill Cooper tried to share with the world all those years ago.
Yeah, certainly.
And with with intelligence analysis, one of the first things that you learn is that you put so much stock and so much credibility into your source's placement, his access, his history, and Bill Cooper absolutely had that incredible placement, that access. He was a naval, I believe he was an intel analyst himself. He used to give briefings to his naval commanders, and so he had the access to these incredible databases of secret and top secret information. He absolutely knew what he was talking about. He was, in every sense, a credible source.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, his name doesn't come up enough, I think, in the world of the independent media. You hear these other names that will come up quite often, and he predates a lot of them and is more noteworthy than a lot of them.
Absolutely, he was so eloquent too. You listen to those lectures that he gives on YouTube, and you still get chills all these years later.
Well, I think there were a lot of disinformation agents who tried to discredit him in various ways, and so there's a lot of pollution out there on the internet due to that, and therefore that's been one factor perhaps in why his notoriety hasn't been larger. I don't know, but someone has to be able to see past that and have time to look.
It's interesting what he said about Alex Jones.
Yeah, well, what I did look into that, it seemed like it could get very confusing, but it seems very curious. They had different relationships at different time periods. Like, what did you gather that you were referring to in particular right there?
It seems like I've heard him interviewed. I don't remember who the interviewer was, but he basically gives a list of reasons why Alex Jones is not a credible source of reputable information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of the listeners here on TruthCat would say that you have to take Alex Jones's reporting with a huge grain of salt, considering his connections and the fact that, he is supposedly one of these mouthpieces for the, speaking out against the New World Order and conspiracies, and but he won't say anything about sex trafficking and the Getty.
And he's very hesitant, of course, to say anything it's going against Israel or their agenda.
Exactly.
Is a big part of it, I think. I mean, he seems to be I'll just say this, since we're on the topic of Alex Jones, I mean, he gets large numbers, and for people who are just starting to turn away from the corporate media, he's a good place for people to begin a transition, at least,
right.
And who need it in gradual steps, if you will.
Yeah.
He provides that. He seems to provide that, but a lot of people can also.
I should caveat that by saying that I'm incredibly grateful to Alex Jones for helping to open my eyes to the way the world works, and it was following links from Drudge Report to reports on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, Alex Jones's websites, that led me down the path that led me into Morpheus's rabbit hole. That showed me how the truth has been pulled over our eyes, and so many things are manipulated, and so many of the things that people grow up in the West believing and being taught are absolutely false.
Yeah, so we have to give him credit where the credit is due.
Definitely.
But at the same time, some people can see him as either knowingly or unknowingly as a gatekeeper, providing a true gatekeeper role for a lot of agendas, which will not make it past. I mean, sure, he'll be in favor of Trump, it seems. It seems like he's wary of, I don't know, is he wary currently of the warmongering against Russia or not? I haven't kept up. Do you know?
I'm a little bit out of the loop myself.
Okay. All right.
When it comes to Alex and what he said about Russia.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. But I mean, just as far as the attitudes, like we mentioned Israel as one example, and of course he's just happy with the status quo to a certain amount, with pushing his products and keeping people in a certain state of mind with little tidbits, and there is a lot of fear mongering that you do get from his sort of presentation, and he has to know that that's a lot of just running in circles. and just avoiding a lot of real topics. Even if he gets on certain issues, he'll only scratch the surface to some and won't touch others, even just related to this country and its laws and its money systems. Yeah, he'll only go so far. And certainly the Zionists do pull his strings. Some of the major players he will not expose.
Mm-hmm.
And then Israel, of course, is right along with that. But I've
heard that he makes an incredible amount of money from the products that he sells on his radio show and
I believe
on his
it.
website.
Yeah, and so he doesn't want to rock the boat too much, and he knows that Zionist and his Israeli influences, anything that could be deemed anti-Semitic, basically, could influence to a large degree his financial investment. That's no understatement. That's definitely an understatement. And I think he's really happy with the lifestyle he's become accustomed to, and his family has been allowed to become accustomed to, and he wouldn't want to disturb that. Is what it comes down to, and so he is rather limited.
Yeah. But
he does provide as I said, a function. Although unfortunately, some people may stick to him as gospel, absolute truth, and not look beyond it, perhaps.
Definitely.
So that's definitely a danger. I don't know. I heard some people even recently left being affiliated with him. I think like the one guy, Joe Biggs, is no longer with him. I don't know why. Perhaps maybe Joe had a strong brush with just having too much integrity to stick with him. I really, I don't know.
I hadn't heard that.
But there's another gentleman, a really brilliant analyst of the independent media. I had him as a guest on my show, and he originally was affiliated with Alex Jones at one point. But he left for similar reasons. Michael Rivero, are you familiar with him?
No, I haven't heard that name.
Okay, well, he was with Alex for a short stint when early in his life, like in his time in the independent media.
Right.
But he's had his own show ever since then for quite a lot of years now, and he's broadcasting out of Hawaii, and he does a 3-hour show 5 days a week. And I generally don't advertise too much for people outside of our station, but Michael Rivero is brilliant. He really is, and he even outs Israel for what they are. That's actually one of the primary reasons why he had to break ties with Alex Jones.
That would explain it.
Yeah. But no, regarding a lot of agendas and not being at all about fear mongering. He's a brilliant source for the independent media and a great analyst. Just thought I would mention. But I have had him on as a guest before. And
I'll definitely look him up.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, you should. And I plan to have him on again. But if you look in the archives, you can find his links there. And we hope to hear from him again on Beyond the Matrix. He was definitely one of the favored guests, I'd say, of the ones I've had. But no, I mean, as far as your original question a little while ago, just to sum up, I mean, my impression of Russia had always been a little questioning of the mainstream narrative, as far as the American mainstream narrative.
Awesome.
I saw like the McCarthyism effect on my parents' generation, and I see how it's being regurgitated now, affecting my generation, my parents' generation, and the millennials all at once. Millennials, the Xers, and the Boomers are all getting affected now with this propaganda, and anyone who's not plugged into the independent media is getting sucked into just it's Cold War #2. Okay, that's where we're at. And of course, just like the attitudes toward Iran, and in the entertainment industry as well is as bad as ever. But I mean, they're just both countries that don't play ball with the Zionists. I guess that's really the similarity between Russia and Iran more than anything.
Yeah, it's crazy that the mainstream media has vilified this country, Iran, that hasn't invaded another country in several hundred years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Where the United States, which is only 200 years old, has invaded dozens and dozens of other countries, and has been at war for most of its history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're still trying to break new records. I mean, Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize before really even being in office long enough to do anything. And then after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, he goes on to go to war with 7 countries. So yeah, that I don't know. That was maybe a new record even for a U.S. president, but
it would make George Orwell's head spin.
but now we have
war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength.
Exactly. And now we have some people who are comparing Trump and the way he's being treated by everyone is kind of a parallel to Kennedy. Unfortunately, we see how that played out. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe now with Putin on the global chess board, so to speak, at the same time period, who knows? Maybe Putin and Trump could watch each other's backs or something. I don't know.
It might happen.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are drawing parallels between where Trump is now and where John F. Kennedy saw himself and found himself way back when he was president. And yeah, how everyone was against him basically because he wanted to end a lot of corruption and started cleaning house on a lot of issues.
It's definitely going to be an interesting year, one way or another.
It certainly is. It sounds interesting. Thank you so much for coming on, Dave, and I look forward to joining you on your show coming up here.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Dave, how much time do you need to do what you got to do?
I think I'm in pretty good shape. If you give me a couple of minutes to get a drink of water and stuff.
Minutes. I'm going to play a couple songs, okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
I'll definitely be ready to go at 8.
Well, I may decide to keep playing a couple songs, see, because
okay,
we may go a little over 8 because I'll probably play about 6 minutes of songs here. How's that sound?
All right, sounds good.
Unless I get a wild hair and I play 10 minutes. All right, you guys. Now, since we're all connected here, we don't have to disconnect. Why don't I just stop the recorder?
Well, you want me to say goodbye to the listeners?
You can say goodbye to your listeners and end your show, and I'll stop recording it. But then after that, everybody just mute, and I'll play musica, and then I'll come in there, and you'll know when you hear the music stop, Dave. You'll know. Well, I'll be on top of you by then. Okay. Either that, I'll just play more music. Okay. All right. Hang on. Let me. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for Dave Robbins' Mystic Freedom coming up next. We'll talk to you again next week. Transcend the construct. Regards.